Get mantra tracks and healing MP3s at JasonGallant.ca. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about heaven always being here. I'm looking around and today it's quite easy to see that heaven is here. Some days it's not so easy to see that heaven is here. But it's an interesting thought. What if heaven always is here, but it's just lost to your level of perception at the time? When you're deep in suffering, you're not able to see it, but what if it was always here? If this is true, then you would say it's your awareness that is the weak link, not the reality itself. It's your inability to experience heaven because it's always here. That's the problem. It's your level of awareness at the time is focused on the negative and not on the thing that threads through all of it, which is the heavenly experience. The broader perspective. You could also look at it like time. When you see something over the span of 1,000 years, it has a much different perspective, a much different point of view than when you see something from the span of 2 or 3 minutes. Let me make it clear. If you are in pain for a minute or in pain for 100 years, that seems like a much bigger deal, right? When you're in pain for 100 years. But if the pain just comes and goes, not really a big deal. So it is for this reason that you must expand into your infinite self. And the infinite is always here, and that is another word for heaven. This broad expanse of time. So yes, there's little blips along the way, different levels of pain, different drama that goes on. But underneath it all, there's this spaciousness. Feel into it in this moment right now. Just feel into the spaciousness that is around you, regardless of what kind of commotion is also happening in your life. The spaciousness is also there. I'm sitting in it right now. And just like clouds move through the sky, pain can also move through this spaciousness. This spaciousness doesn't make you impervious to pain. You still will experience pain, but the pain will not be permanent. That's the difference. It's transitory. Symptoms move through you just like clouds move through the sky, but it's not about avoiding life. You see, life comes in all forms, but the spaciousness never leaves you. When you remember that you are here, there's no forward thinking, no backward thinking. You don't need to self-reference through ego and I and all these different sub-motives that you might have going on with self-reflection, like you're reading about yourself in a book and John did this and John did that and John should do this and John should do that. But what does other people in the community think of John? You know, all these different sub-monologues and motives that you have going on inside your mind about the character called you. When you let go of that, when you let go of being a character, let go of self-referencing through others' opinion and through life itself, then the space makes itself more obvious to you. You just expand like a blob, like a spiritual blob. You just expand into this space. Just remember that you are this space. And then things can move through it without quite as much drama. internally anyway. I'm all for you having drama on the outside. You know, conflicts, all these things, it's all normal. It's normal to defend your physical space because the physical body has certain realities to it. You know, it needs to survive. Another way to look at it is that if you surrender your immune system for one day, what do you think will happen to your body? Right? They're just certain realities. But when you remember that you are the space, you are the infinite, then you can become very practical when it comes down to the different levels of reality, such as the physical. You see, the space has no religion. There's no philosophy there. There's not so much right and wrong there. There's more about just the way things are. It's the universal practicality. And when you look at your life from the universal practicality point of view, then you don't get caught up in dogma or fanatical thinking. There's just practicality. There's just what works and what doesn't. And what works to free you from mental and emotional suffering is to remember that you are the space. And yes, this will have a physical healing effect as well, although there is time also wrapped up in that. And time moves much slower on the physical level than it does on the thought level. You can instantaneously shift your thoughts, but the body, it's a little bit more of a slower mover. But if you hold your identification in the truest self, in this space, the infinite, then these things we call symptoms move through you at a faster rate. And that's what we would call healing. Sometimes healing comes in the form of being very practical, which is sometimes seeing a doctor, sometimes making sure you're taking the right supplements and eating the right food, exercising. But when you're anchored in the space, you're not worried about how healing comes because you don't have a religion around it. You don't have an idealism of it should be one way or the other. You are just infinitely practical. Whatever works. You see, because in the space there's no identity. There's no identity saying, I have a belief that this should work instead of that. No, it's just exactly what works. You become the truest observer in the laboratory called the infinity. There have been many observers over the last several thousand years, or hundreds of thousands of years. And what these sages did is they just observed and watched what is happening. They didn't project a religion around it. They just said, what is happening? And just accepted their observations and just allowed that wisdom to flow into them, and then they shared it with the world. And as their awareness expanded, then their understanding of the rules of the universe would also shift. So it is your awareness that must expand. And this awareness naturally expands when you remember that you are the space. See, because when you're the space, you're nothing. You're just this. When you're Bob, you're probably, I am a point of view, I am this history. See, that's the opposite of space. That's a bunch of stuff. If you moved into my house and said, Jason, I have a lot of space I want to move in, I wouldn't have any problem with that. But if you had a trailer full of stuff, that would probably be a bigger problem, right? Like, where am I going to fit all your stuff? So it's a nice part about space. It's easy to move. No matter where you go, you don't have to pay much money to move space, right? Nothing at all, really. Space is free. So I hope this helps you out on your spiritual journey. Take care for now.